There was a man who could make even the god of love tremble. Buddha Shakyamuni. Some people are born as mere mortals. But Shakyamuni was born standing on Rome. As a prince of the Kshatriya caste, Shakyamuni had everything in life. He wore clothes made of the finest silk. He had an endless supply of delicacies. He lived in a resplendent palace of gold. Received the finest education in the kingdom. From the moment of his birth, the gods decreed that he would become the king of the world. Thus every night Shakyamuni gazed at the stars. Destined to be the king of the world. He was to lead the Shakya clan to peace. He gave food to the lowest caste, the Shudras. They revered him, lifting him up as a god. In Shakyamuni's heart, bringing happiness to every commoner was his greatest responsibility. However, one day his beliefs were shattered by two birds. An eagle soared freely in the sky. Suddenly it was devoured by a vulture. As he watched the eagle being hunted, he pondered deeply. Was the eagle truly fated to such a cruel destiny? Seeking answers, Shakyamuni turned to a distant relative, King Gautama, who was 5 years his senior. As they got along well, Shakyamuni affectionately called him Kun Kun. Shakyamuni asked his elder brother, is my fate truly set in stone? Am I only meant to be king of Shakya, bringing happiness to my people, nothing more? At that moment his brother fell into silence. To outsiders he was the happiest king, beloved by all his people, yet only he knew the truth. His days were numbered. From the moment of his birth, Gautama had devoted his life to being a wise ruler. Yet this predetermined path, who did it truly belong to? What did the roasted beans of the poor taste like? Where did the great rivers finally flow? How far did the vast sky extend? He would die never knowing. For the first time Shakyamuni faced death. And he felt fear. Where in the endless cosmos would he fall? The moment of death would come soon. After Gautama passed away, the entire nation mourned and wept for him day and night. At that moment Shakyamuni fully realized. Was his life destined to follow the same path? Who did his life truly belong to? Was everything merely a bestowed happiness? At that instant he awakened. He dismounted his horse, tears streaming as he laughed wildly. The people believed he had been consumed by grief. But only he knew that from this moment on, he had attained enlightenment. At Gautama's funeral he lay peacefully in his coffin. Suddenly countless flower petals rained from the sky. The people looked up in anger. It was Shakyamuni. This scene, which seemed celebratory, was shocking to all, coming from Prince Shakyamuni himself. He scattered petals over Gautama's coffin, then lifting it onto his shoulders, he walked away, ignoring the shocked and furious gazes. Thus Shakyamuni set off to seek true happiness. He placed Gautama upon the river, letting him witness sights he had never seen. The river would reveal the world to him. From that day forward, Shakyamuni abandoned all his noble status. Like a sharp blade cutting away excess, he embarked on a lonely journey to find himself. Outside he was no longer bound by any constraints. It was said that true enlightenment could only be reached through extreme suffering, that starving oneself purified the soul. But Shakyamuni refused. Alone he defied the followers. He sought to overturn the concept of self-inflicted suffering. When he saw a girl about to be sacrificed to the gods, he kicked over the offering and saved her. The enraged followers cursed him. But Shakyamuni remained unfazed. If opposing the gods brought their wrath, then he would challenge the gods themselves. To him, everything he did was to rebel against the fate dictated by the gods. That alone was his reason. And so he chose to fight against the gods. Fuku compressed his muscles. His axe fused into his flesh, revealing the bones beneath. Thus a new weapon was born. A twin-bladed staff appeared in Fuku's hands. Shakyamuni saw this and spun his six-path staff once more. The first path of the six-path staff. Heavenly Path. Ruyi Wheel Guanyin. What follows is a clash between sharp blades and swift strikes. Shakyamuni and Fuku engage in a fierce battle. At first they seem evenly matched. However, with his ability to see the future, Shakyamuni has already seen through Fuku's moves. No matter how fierce his axe strikes, they only ever graze Shakyamuni's shadow. Shakyamuni counters with a lightning-fast reversal move. His strike slices across Fuku's chest. Enraged Fuku becomes more reckless. His misfortune continues to escalate. His axe begins to pulse with an eerie heartbeat. In the next moment the axe blossoms open, sending multiple sharp blades flying at Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni spins his six-path staff once more. Six-path staff. Third path. Human realm path. Unyielding lasso Guanyin. An indestructible Vajra sword shatters all the incoming blades. The razor-sharp fragments scatter around Shakyamuni. Just as the blades threaten the audience, Shakyamuni shatters them once more. At this moment the human spectators notice something. Shakyamuni exudes a unique fragrance. Meanwhile, Shakyamuni relentlessly advances with precise swordplay. He quickly closes the distance between him and Zero Fuku. Zero Fuku swings his axe wildly in desperation. But in the end Shakyamuni breaks through his assault with ease. This spectacular battle captivates the entire audience. All eyes are on the victor, Shakyamuni. Between the two of them, Zero Fuku was always the isolated one. That had never changed. The seeds of jealousy took root and sprouted. Why? Why does no one ever pay attention to me? Even his strongest attack is effortlessly deflected by Shakyamuni. For a brief moment Shakyamuni even attempts to console him. Little Zero Fuku, you must learn to love yourself. Love myself? If not for so many people watching, Zero Fuku might have fallen to his knees. Was it just his imagination? For a brief moment he thought he saw his grandmother. At that moment Zero Fuku could no longer hold it in. He cried like a 3-year-old child. At this moment he only wanted to be like Shakyamuni. To be loved by everyone. The gods in attendance widened their eyes in disbelief. Zero Fuku's axe was vanishing, dissolving into nothingness. And with it his misfortune disappeared as well. Zero Fuku stood there dumbfounded, staring at Shakyamuni. Such a wonderful expression. Shakyamuni couldn't help but lower his six-path staff. He prepared to face Zero Fuku in a true heartfelt battle. Shedding their titles as human and god, they confronted each other as equals. At that instant Zero Fuku found his salvation. Shakyamuni threw a full-force right punch. It struck Zero Fuku, sending him crashing down. The arena erupted in cheers from the human spectators. Lying on the ground Zero Fuku's misfortune began to fade away. Hild understood. This pure innocent boy, that was Zero Fuku's true self. Bathed in Shakyamuni's divine light, for the first time Zero Fuku felt truly happy. However, I will try to believe once more. To believe in what I want to do. To have faith in those I wish happiness upon. In order to learn to love myself. Not bad, that's a great way of thinking. Little Zero Fuku. The sixth battle of Ragnarok officially begins. Day suddenly turned to night. Lotus flowers bloomed across the stage, forming a path. As the grand gate opened, a man walked in, slowly sucking on a lollipop. Over the span of 6 years, he had comprehended the truths of the human world. Solitude was the source of his strength. A prince of mankind who ultimately attained enlightenment and vanished. Buddha Shakyamuni. The human spectators gasped upon seeing him. They all drew in sharp breaths. However, what no one expected, Shakyamuni walked past the gods and toward the humans. The god of shock Ares was shocked once again. What is going on? As the host questioned him, Shakyamuni slowly picked up the microphone. I represent the human side. Got it? At that moment all the gods' jaws dropped. They couldn't believe their own ears. And then, a wave of furious cheers erupted from the gods in the audience. However, if the gods refuse to save humanity, then I will. Upon hearing these words, every god present seethed with rage. They could hardly believe it. Shakyamuni, who was supposed to fight for the gods, had suddenly betrayed them to stand with humanity. Even his younger sister couldn't understand what was happening. She turned her head, but this turn of events seemed to be part of Hild's plan all along. Could it be? Not long before the sixth battle began, Hild had coincidentally encountered Buddha Shakyamuni. He had been casually stuffing popcorn into his mouth. Then he spoke slowly. Zeus asked me to fight for the gods in round 6. But now I've changed my mind. I plan to fight on behalf of humanity instead. Hearing this, Hild simply responded calmly, I know. Shakyamuni smirked. Thinking back now, it seemed that everything had been in Hild's plan all along. Long before Ragnarok had even been decided, Hild had approached Shakyamuni regarding the Lotus rebirth. It was likely at that moment she had already foreseen everything. She had always planned for Shakyamuni to fight against the gods. Shakyamuni never followed anyone's orders. But with his unwavering sense of justice, he could not stand by as the gods oppressed humanity. Returning to the present, the announcer hesitated. Your decision puts us in a difficult position. After all the matchups have already been set, how can we change them? Just then Zeus slowly walked onto the stage, interrupting them. He spoke indifferently. It doesn't matter. If you choose humanity, then be prepared to stand against all the gods. Besides, let's show everyone here. What happens when you defy the gods? Despite the gods' fury, Shakyamuni remained unfazed. In this universe, aside from me, nothing else matters. Who's getting anxious now? I won't say. As the Buddha who stands above heaven and earth, I'm only curious about one thing. Who is my opponent? A dragon-headed flying ship slowly descended onto the stage. Standing aboard it were none other than the 7 lucky gods. Zeus turned to them and said, the rest is up to you. Then he slowly left the stage. The announcer was utterly baffled. A one-on-one match. Why are there 7 of them? It turned out that the 7 lucky gods had always been one entity. With a furious roar from Bishamontan, their leader, his armor shattered, revealing his true form. Ebisu took a running start and merged into Bishamontan's body from behind. Fusion. One by one the remaining 5 gods began merging as well. The 7 lucky gods. In a matter of moments, a strange pulsating sphere appeared in the center of the stage. As the sphere cracked apart, a new figure emerged. Zero Fuku was reborn. Legend had it that the 7 lucky gods were divine pillars of fortune. But rumors spoke of an 8th deity, a hidden god. When this god descended upon the world, all fortune perished, leaving only destruction. I want to slaughter to my heart's content. Facing Zero Fuku's provocation, Shakyamuni's expression grew serious. It seemed this would be a difficult battle. The legend said that when Buddha truly became enraged, he did not save, he only destroyed. With Zero Fuku now transformed into the 6th heaven demon king, who would prove stronger? Long ago Zero Fuku had been a kind-hearted god. When he saw a fallen chick under a tree, he gently picked it up and placed it back in its nest. He once believed the world was as blissful as the heavens, until the day he descended to earth. The misery and suffering he witnessed left him in shock. Humans tormented by endless suffering. He felt their pain. How could he bring them happiness? That became his sole mission. As he walked through the streets, bodies lay scattered everywhere. Zero Fuku suddenly had a thought. If humanity suffered, then eliminating the source of suffering, perhaps that was the answer. With that thought, he approached a frail, disease-ridden boy. He gently placed his palm on the boy's chest. As a white light flashed, Zero Fuku absorbed all of the boy's illness into himself. The next moment the boy was running around as if he were never sick. From that day forward, more and more people prayed to Zero Fuku. Please grant us happiness. And Zero Fuku's solution was to absorb all of humanity's misfortune. He took this as his duty, to make the suffering people happy. He kept absorbing more and more misfortune, for the sake of universal happiness. Zero Fuku never stopped endlessly absorbing. He gave everything he had. Years passed and fate began to turn against him. Having taken in so much human misfortune, Zero Fuku was consumed by pain. Yet he never considered stopping. One day he returned to a village from long ago. But what he saw shocked him. The once sorrowful and miserable scene had been replaced by something different. Gluttony, greed and lust now filled those he had once saved. And the very first boy Zero Fuku had healed was now a grown man. You've grown up. It looks like you've escaped misfortune. But instead of gratitude, the young man cursed at Zero Fuku, who had collapsed. Who the hell are you? You're filthy. Get lost. Zero Fuku was bewildered, even doubting himself. Is this really the happiness I fought to give humanity? He had worked so hard to absorb their suffering, but somehow they seemed to have become something worse. And at that moment, a sudden sight caught everyone's attention. In the middle of the village, a group of people stood in a long line, following a lone man as he slowly walked forward. Strangely, even animals were mixed into the procession. Zero Fuku assumed they were all unfortunate souls who had heard of him and come seeking salvation. However, reality was different. Can I have a single bean too, Lord Shakyamuni? What? Eat as much as you like. The people following that man, though dressed in rags, each one of them wore bright smiles of true happiness. And so, the devoted villagers followed the man's steps. They were about to pass by Zero Fuku, but Zero Fuku stopped them. Huh? He slapped the beans from the man's hands. Then he demanded an answer. Why is this happening? Why are the people around you so happy? I gave everything to absorb human misfortune. Why did I only become more unfortunate? Why didn't those people become happy? They even became worse, absorbing misfortune? That's not the right way. Happiness isn't something others can give you. You have to find it yourself. Where there is darkness, there is also light. To gain happiness, one must bear their own burdens. With that, the man even invited Zero Fuku. Come join us and experience happiness. Zero Fuku didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to feel. Tears welled up in his eyes, trembling. Crying, he ran away from the crowd. He ran away from himself. For the first time he felt jealousy toward a human. His divine duty had been effortlessly accomplished by a mere human. For a god, this was an unbearable disgrace. By the riverbank he looked at his reflection. Tears streamed down his face. The seeds of jealousy and rage had silently begun to sprout within him. And so his love twisted into hatred. He could no longer control his body. Hatred overflowed from him. All the misfortune he had absorbed began to ooze from his skin. In a single night he transformed into Zero Fuku. Let's kill them all. A passing human saw the horrifying sight. Zero Fuku was no longer the same. Just as he prepared to bring destruction upon humanity, just as the world faced its doom, his body suddenly convulsed. It was as if an unknown force was restraining him. Then in a flash of white light Zero Fuku vanished completely. Phew, that was a close call. I almost unleashed divine punishment upon humanity. Instead 7 different gods emerged. At the very moment Zero Fuku was about to destroy humanity, he split himself into 7 divine entities. And so the legend of the 8 lucky gods was born. Among them, the 7 lucky gods never forgot the man who had awakened their jealousy and rage. Buddha Shakyamuni.